Hi, I'm Shrimp, and if you're a fellow Honkai Star Rail player who has completed Penacony's story, I have a question for you. Did Penacony make you feel tired, exhausted, absolutely fatigued, woozy beyond doozy, worn out, perhaps drowsy and in need of a nap? If this persists, you might want to look into this with a medical professional actually, but if you've answered yes otherwise, you might have just suffered from Penacony Ultimate Burnout, P.U.B for short. Got a nice ring to it, innit? Symptoms of P.U.B might include, but might not be limited to, newly developed reluctance or avoidance of completing Penacony maps, new cases of missing on the timed activities such as dailies or events, negative feelings towards Penacony characters ranging from awkwardness to annoyance and nausea, complete lack of interest in the future of Penacony, or in more serious cases in the future of Honkai Star Rail as a whole, new rash in the shape of a glip of Ipa, spirits of Ars Goetia who knows and can reveal all things hidden, and or general feelings of burnout, detachment, and sleepiness. I have to warn you, as a victim of P.U.B, you might not be entitled for any compensation, but good news, at the very least, you're entitled to talk about it without people claiming that you are either illiterate or a silly Humpty Dumpty pumpkin for not jumping and tearing up after the Penacony story ended. So, fellow shrimps, let's go over the game plan. Why talk about it now? Isn't Penacony era over? That's exactly why. Now that Penacony is not in the room with us anymore, we can safely gossip about it behind its back. Waha! And also enough time has passed for there to be less bias and more objectivity, I guess. Woohoo! Why talk about it at all? Well, I simply felt like it. Just like how Penacony deserved to have its accolades. I'm all for the joy. If people loved it and felt like they got more energetic after it, good. Let them think about it and revel in the splendid mirroriness of the moment. But the opposite is also true. Because in my case, all I felt when I was down with 2.2 was, oh, I'm so glad it's finally over. And then I woke up like a month later with a blood sign contract stuck to my face, disoriented, barely crawled through the epilogue, and said, this is my story. But maybe it is yours too, so let's confide in each other and find comfort in shared experiences, because this is what humanity is all about. Although I'm just a shrimp, what I know about humanity. And 3, what is there to even talk about? Are we going to go blazing and blasting, baseball biting the hell out of Penacony in the Vindication Crusade? Crusade? No, we will talk about it like civilized shrimps that recognize that all opinions are subjective, and this video will be representative of my opinions, which you might or might not share. Okay? We also won't focus on reasons behind the P.U.B that are to do with general burnout on Honkai. The game has been out for over a year now, so its natural solid fraction of player base would have burned out on dailies, weeklies, yearlies, 13. And although some points will apply to the burnout caused by the previous major Trailblazer questlines, this will be Penacony specific. We'll do a high-level breakdown of Penacony journey, focusing on different elements of our time there. Story, level, pacing, bosses, rating wins and rating losses, characters and motivations. I think you should take vacations. You should sit a little straighter, don't save all your chores for later, drink your water, eat your greens. We're ready. Let's begin. The journey through the very bad, the very good, and the very tiring Penacony begins with a lot of very exciting, not tiring things actually, and it begins a little before 2.0. White Knight was the first proper exposé for all excited Honkai players, and for those who don't even go here because oof, that was a lot of money spent on marketing, but I be shrimped, did White Knight set the mood. Jazzy, glamorous, yet mysterious, featuring a cast of characters with their own conflicts and relationships, a whirlwind of mysteries and joyous parties alike was awaiting us. The Trailblazers and Penacony of 2.0. And then 2.0 released, and it was true to the trailer. That is important. It doesn't matter so much if you like 2.0 or not in this case. What matters is that the White Knight had a promise and 2.0 stayed true to it. Fast-paced mysteries? Why yes, mysteries. Yes, fast. There was almost no standing around. Dialogues were brief, a lot was shared as we walked and fought, and things were happening at every walking and fighting story turn. Red text accurate in the prelude, why is she there? Why is her dialogue like that? Aventurin exchanging his room in a shady deal for a friendship favor? We could have a friendship too, general use, shrimp crab now. Fireflies up to something, sparkles up to something else. Who is Mikhail? Something unto death? Used kill, but it missed something unto death, used killed again. We finished off with 2 murder mysteries, bang and bang. Even if you immediately know neither Firefly nor Robin are dead, it still left your mouth hanging, left you doubting in a bit. What if? You went 2.0 wide-eyed because it's action on action ramping up to culmination to grand finale. Every important step of the story leading up to that high is also supported by a cutscene. The bridges between those highlights, the inevitable no one is in immediate danger moments, happen as you travel through Penacony, because 2.0 drags you forward at all times, kicks you forward with a cutscene, and drags you forward again. Through the first Penacony dream, that immediately tells you things are not quite alright here. It drags you through the golden hour. It's dazzling and it feels like you're thrown into bada bing bada boom new Penacony York. The touristic attraction Penacony is in your face here. It drags you through the dream's edge, a look behind the scenes, a glance at the work of family locals that supports Penacony's glamour. Through the child's dream, where the story sets the big mysteries into motion. Who is Mikhail from the echoes of memories we encounter? Why is something into death hunting us? Levels are very insightful. They're trying to impart as much information as they can onto you as you pass by, whether it be through the sides or through the enemies you encounter. Show don't tell, executed well. Goodness, you might say right there. Goodness gracious. Tickle my nickel shrimp. You are being so disgustingly positive right now. What happened to the pub support group Cry and Lie? We're arriving. We're pretty much here. I'm cutting my onions as fast as I can, I promise. The tears are on their way. I can feel them coming. Because yes, so far 2.0 story, pacing, cutscenes, dialogues, levels, enemies, they haven't contributed to the burnout. The real question we have here is how 2.0 achieved that. And the answer is rather simple. You see, players have limited time to play the game. I know, an impossible concept. But in turn, the games have limited time to impress the player. For Honkai that has to impress with every new major release, this limited time begins the moment players enter the Trailblazer quest. What 2.0 does is it leaves all the extra stuff, all details, for the time outside of the trailblazing and condenses the story quest down to its most important action-packed points. Now, another approach to telling a story would not be inherently wrong. Not at all. But unfortunately, just like how White Knight was a promise for 2.0, 2.0 was also a further promise for 2.1 and the rest of Penacony's story. 2.0 warned us. It's all downhill from here, we're getting dark, baby. Energy bills are high this year, turn the lights off. It set the plotline's priorities, gave us the detective coats and little detective hats, and said, I'm gonna take you on such a mystery-solving trip, you're going to be begging to go Sherlock home when this is over. He told us what the pacing will be like, action on action on action, 5 hours in, and you are out a changed person. 2.1 was not true to this premise. Neither was 2.2. 55 new cases came up, but the detective agency had their budget cut and only had time to tackle in full only 1 or 2 mystery per episode. The new P.U.B. storytelling meant the mood of the story was no longer progressing in a linear fashion, and of course, the new batches decided to have new approach to story pacing altogether. Just like with 2.0, doesn't matter whether you liked the updates, 2.1 and 2.2 just didn't follow through with what they were promised to be. Some people, clearly a lot, liked what 2.1 and 2.2 did with the plays, but some people might not have been ready for this episode of We're Coming Over. If you go into the story expecting to play it in 5 hours and instead it's 10 plus, it could be an unwelcome surprise. If you go into the story expecting it to be an adventure and RPG genre, as advertised, and instead it's one step away from being a visual novel, it could be an unwelcome surprise. When both happen at the same time, you're put in a situation equivalent to you getting stuck at a friend's place in a surprise karaoke party with 5 other people you've never met. If you love karaoke and you love meeting new people, you'd be having the time of your life. If you're an introvert who hates singing, you'd be so exhausted by the end of it, you'll end up crawling home. So it would be a person-specific effect we are looking at. But a certain type of players would suffer here from the lack of energy because of our first very tiring point. Penacony changing the storytelling style, pacing, and genre mid-story. But if we start to dive deeper into 2.1 and 2.2, we'll see more facets of this. In 2.1, first the quests and beginning of the third are just talking. You talk to Aventurine, you speak with Black Swan, you follow Black Swan out of the hotel, nothing happens, you just talk by the way. You wait for the express crew near the clocky statue, you talk. You watch the memory, which is where you watch the talking, you talk to the crew. Talk to Himiko, talk to March 7th, talk to Weld, you speak with Acheron, you recall the memories in Acheron, where you watch some more talking, and you watch the memory of Aventurine, where you guessed it, there is more talking. As a list, it looks short on the paper, but the dialogues are actually quite long. The contents are mostly lengthy discussions of things we already know. Nothing is moving forward anymore. It is a recap of 2.0 in case players have forgotten what has happened, so there is leeway for that part, but it's a tiring start nonetheless, because instead of jumping into action, you're starting off pumped up, hyped, zooming and booming, and instead you're glooming. You're thrown into a library quiet hour, which is every hour in the library actually. But if you start off an exciting new update with a slow hour-long chat, the excitement might burn away by the time new area and fun new gameplay even begin. So another turning point for our burnout reasons investigation jar: slow starts that waste the excitement energy. Oh my god, this was all a huge prelude to the story? Actually, yeah, we haven't even started exploring. Oh my gosh. Hi, birdie. Yank. The dialogue start in 2.1 is followed by the quest in which Aventurine and Dr. Ratio visit their dear friend Sunday and nothing ever goes wrong between them. And this is fun. In a way, this is the return to 2.0 form, so 2.1 sort of goes, oh, bother, sorry for the long start, technical difficulties, we're back, let's go. But then it's just more dialogues. Topaz, Galaga, Donations Charity Run hosted by Aventurine, Bartending 101 hosted by Shaban. You move to a new location, you have a dialogue. You move to a new location, you have another dialogue. And then it goes, hold on, let me circle back. Here's a new map, it's relevant to Penacony history, and you can walk and talk through it with your good buddy Aventurine. That's the jam, right? But that never works out. What's concerning is that the story ignores the deep significance of the location to the plot, the whole reflection of Penacony history in the Cloaky theme park, the very point from which the map is introduced, by the way, and instead laser focuses on Aventurine and IPC plotline, making it the next big thing since sliced bread. Well, sliced bread is quite small actually. Next big thing since Wales. And even more concerning is Aventurine, who has some sort of critical condition apparently. Not the Syrian curse of the Ian, not his deep-rooted anxiety, yet another one. Aventurine is incapable of talking and walking at the same time. Fun fact, some shark species need to constantly swim or they'll die. Aventurine is the opposite of this. I think Aventurine moves while talking, he will collapse on the spot. He'll turn Aventurine inside out and burst like a balloon. He's like an anti-shark. No shark in him except for the gambling shark. His clones of the past, present, and the future don't travel with you. They can only be summoned by locking your camera and removing your controls at the player, and then you have to sit and watch as they have their conference of Aventurine's traumatic past with slides. They straight up removed the 3D aspect and turned this into a PowerPoint presentation. But this is actually irrelevant here because the real issue of the prolonged Aventurine-themed R&D meeting is this. We as players get that Aventurine's past was very traumatic. It taught him to gamble his life at any inconvenience, and yet still he remains caring for his roots, his family. We get it in 1-2 dialogue pauses, yet we listen to different, deeply traumatic experiences at least 10 times, which doesn't help in driving the point home. Because the point has already arrived home half an hour ago, changed into the pajamas, is now playing video games on the couch. 2.1 takes the make the most out of players' time and energy philosophy of 2.0 and instead makes it into use as much of the player's time as you can, which to some, they are getting a longer story, more content, they are thriving in the karaoke party with 5 new friends they just made. It's more bang for their buck, it's very good. To some, it would have been disrespectful of their time, very bad. And to the team let me go to sleep, well, they at this point would have logged out and gone to sleep. That's me. Unfortunately, a lot of that extra content doesn't come in form of a new information, but rather as repetition. 10 examples of Aventurine's gambling history instead of just 2. It is bloated through this repetition. And come on. Don't tell me every word they have said in Penacony matters and had to be there for the greater cause of plot nuances. There was no need for 4 bad stories. Personally, I live in the fear of the civil creature. Even with minor changes between all 4, it loses its flavor by the 4th time and loses its ability to make an impact. No need for Acheron saying the same thing twice.
The path in Penacony is impure. The harmony here has impurities.
Either part of the sentence would have worked and still carried the same meaning. Just one more prominent example of quite a few that have plagued the Penacony. Those moments felt more like lack of time to cut everything down to the meat of relevancy, leaving behind a bloated dialogue scope that was just tiring to get through. Notice, not bad or good, love it or hate it. Tiring. You count ships to fall asleep? I'm counting charming doves now. I hate this bird so much. And so, longer playthrough time that isn't well justified, it goes into the list of causes. But what's coming up next is something that to me felt even worse. There were a lot of philosophical sentiments expressed in the dialogues. Let's agree on that.
Human consciousness is fundamentally an illusion.
And I hated that. Not because I didn't get their meaning. I did get every single thing they were saying. I just didn't care. And there were two reasons for that. One is that while some of those sentiments were nice, the cool and deep statements just stopped being impactful at some point, just due to their numbers. When Acheron is sharing her 25th wisdom, you learn the new wisdom too. Sometimes too much of a good thing can be too much. But the second, even bigger reason is the lack of player agency that comes with this. Some of those philosophical statements carried strong philosophical opinions, and opinions are subjective, so philosophies of those characters and their writers are not bound to be shared by the player. And the characters don't need to have the same opinion as you, that just wouldn't be fun. Don't want everybody to have the same favorite color as me. But it's also not fun when you can't disagree and are somehow forced into answers you don't want to give. The Sunday test of 3 questions is an easy example to give. I thought the options he offered were very narrow-minded and lacked an alternative approaches to better solve his problems. And if the intention was to show Sunday as lacking other insights, it didn't quite come across because the entire supporting crew, Himiko, March, Firefly, they were also not pointing out obvious flaws and validating our player side conflict with this in any way. The same happens a lot. Between Acheron and Firefly, Acheron and Venturian, anything with Acheron actually, and 2.2, anything with Sunday, their dialogues often make you feel excluded unless you are of the same opinion. You cannot contribute, and you cannot actively disagree or debate anybody. It's when Acheron and Venturian discuss why life slumbers and you can't interject. It's when Sunday talks about his plans and March goes, ooh, he makes so much sense, and you can't slap them both across their face because this man is trying to solve all Penacony problems by swiping them under the train and ignoring the rest of issues that will continue happening. This always won't stop coming because real Penacony doesn't have immigration laws or immigrant support because the head of administration is busy playing God. And that's so you get us, if evil, why so nice? What? So you see, the later Penacony is focused on philosophical topics, yet players are stripped of all relevant gameplay. Not all gameplay, just the one meaningfully contributing to the story. Another way a burnout begins is when you stop caring, and when you've mentally checked out of a conversation that clearly doesn't take into account yours and so your character opinions, you have stopped caring. So you know what can now be added to the very tiring list? Lack of player agency or input. I know 2.2 has already influenced this whole video conversation, but let us continue and even finish with 2.1, because at the end of 2.1 you get a boss fight, if you recall. Pretty much you teleport into it, and the fight is great, especially if you brought AoE attacks. Here is a moment of positivity in the Sea of My Cries. The enemy designers were great in Penacony. I was never tired of their tomfoolery, from Something Unto Death, the Venturine to Embryo Philosophy, to all of the map enemies. Okay, enough of positivity. After all, the boss fight is not the true end of 2.1. So what happens at the true end? You go into another lengthy dialogue, and then into another, and after a cutscene you are suddenly 2.1 complete. You do finish in a banging moment. Penacony really has discovered the cool kids move to stab somebody after the end credits and peace out until the next patch. But in a way, 2.1 masked its burnout faults by the rule of serial possession. You are more likely to remember the very first and the very last moment in the sequence, and the very last moment was Sunday getting wounds that would make him incompatible with being a life form. And that fresh, minty memory has likely made 2.1 feel more exciting than perhaps it was. 2.2 did that too, by the way. I'm wondering how many liked 2.2 in its entirety and how many disliked aspects of it, but were too caught up in the amazing moment of, wow, train to Sunday's face. But what's really important is that once again, the end of a patch is a promise for the next one. And here we do like to check the promise against the delivery, so let's look at that. 2.1 made several promises at the end. We already mentioned the critical hit on Sunday, but there were 2 more big finale scenes. Firefly revealing herself to be Sam, or Sam revealing himself to be Firefly. Oh, anyway, who could have guessed? And another was Jade activating her cornerstone within the family territory. So the story 2.1 premises is IPC finale, Stellaron Hunter's agenda, and murder mysteries resolutions. And then 2.2 comes along, walks into the room and says,
"Screw that. I'm not doing that. That was just a phase, Mum."
murder mystery is resolved in the jiffy. Because apparently Galaga was just testing a new form of a taxi service, as one does. Firefly has an ominous triple death promise, which she nonchalantly handles off screen, so clearly it wasn't that important after all. And IPC is straight up forgotten. I know, there is such a small indie company in the Honkai universe, so easy to lose track of. But in fact, a lot of things set up before were forgotten or dragged out, and instead new things were introduced to us to be forgotten or dragged out. Let's clarify that part, it did sound rather negative. What was it all about? Some Penacony mysteries were dealt with in the background, making them feel very unnecessary. If it didn't have to be there to solve it, we didn't need to know about it in the first place, actually. Like Firefly's second death. She just took off and did her thing, and we got secondhand news on that. Then I don't really care for Firefly's plotline because clearly I'm not supposed to. Or the sealing of Stellaron, that only had an offhand comment in 2.3. With few small adjustments, Stellaron could be entirely removed from Penacony's narrative and the plot wouldn't suffer for it at all. Some Penacony mysteries were dragged around for far too long, killing all suspense and excitement long before the reveal. Paraded around like a long dead rat on a leash, which... Sorry, this came out way too grim. But like the Watchmaker's identity, Mikhail Char legwork, yes, this part of the story did leg its work way too far. We get why life slumbers, despite the extreme vagueness of the topic. Get who Watchmaker is. No need for fireworks, no need for gasps in the audience. But the time it was finally spelled out, 30 hours into the plot, I think it was only March who somehow still didn't get it. And after a significant number of appearances, Sparkle's mystery resolution also didn't feel like a final puzzle piece we've needed this whole time, but instead came off as an afterthought. Not in the least due to association with Firefly, who has handled her business off-screen until then. And finally, some mysteries just had nothing proper done with them. Like Duke Inferno's children. Don't misunderstand me, I think putting out a whole Myriad Celestia and a lead-up patch on Duke Inferno, only to have Acheron kill him off before Penacony at all, was a pretty cool move. But then don't do it one more thing with Constance phone calls. Don't ruin the impact, because now you've gone and created the mystery of surviving Duke's Inferno children and you didn't develop it. And so to sum the issue of Penacony mysteries, or in other words the issue of Penacony plot lines, Penacony kept bringing in new cool plot threads, but was constantly failing to prioritize any select few, making most of them be unworthy of care or focus, yet still demanding the player's attention and sapping the energy and battery life. And these tracks and cutscenes, you can tell they didn't have important mystery action points in 2.2 outside of the whole Sunday Fun Day, because 2.2 has 11 cutscenes, and out of them 8 are Sunday and Grand Theater related. The remaining 3 are as follows. Watchmaker getting to rest? Okay, makes sense. Life slumbers and legworks. Firefly's magical transformation into Sam for her to only go and do her things off screen. And the lifting up part of the Dreamflux Reef map? The highlight of Penacony 2.2 story I clearly just don't have refined tastes to properly appreciate. 3 cutscenes to pinpoint barely important parts of 8 hours of gameplay versus 8 cutscenes for 3 hours of remaining gameplay make me feel like the pacing of the first half could have done with a good reshuffle. Alas, to avoid reshuffling my own shrimping pacing, I think it is fair to admit that I've been talking for a while now, so let me sum it up so we can start heading towards our own grand finale. 1. Penacony has changed the storytelling style midpoint to a lengthier, more tiring one. 2. The longer playtime was often achieved through bloated, repetitive storytelling. 3. Bloated, slow patch starts were wasting the initial excitement energy and leaving nothing for the track ahead. And 4. Lack of player agency and input in a gameplay full of deeply objective philosophical opinions created grounds for mental checkouts, while 5. Unnecessary mystery plotlines demanded extra focus, time and attention to keep a track of them in exchange for no satisfying resolutions. The case is pretty clear. Long and forced scenes where we didn't matter. Perception of those scenes is likely where the difference lies between Penacony enjoyers, Penacony haters, and most importantly to me, Penacony Tired Gang. And this difference would have most likely showed itself most brightly in the Penacony finale, the big cutscene of 2.3. Did you tear up because your time with the Penacony characters came to the splendid end? Did you skip and rage that there wasn't anything of value to you? Or did you feel glad? Glad to be done, glad to be out, unable, in your exhaustion, to care for the characters you were leaving behind? For me, as the third case, I want to say, I don't think the characters we were leaving behind cared about us either, because Penacony's story felt like it wasn't about us, which isn't bad. Fine, I'm not the center of the universe, but the entire time we were listening to people we didn't care for, we forced into action by people who didn't care whether we wanted to do it or not, spending a lot of energy to keep our attention focused on the topics that didn't concern us. Not even the Trailblazer, but least of all the Flare. Penacony felt like an unnecessary Zoom meeting. I'm afraid to say this, but I think the main reason for the burnout is that Penacony could have been an email. One reason or the other, agree disagree, you might have come to be a P.U.B victim. If you are seriously tired, then I have to confess that I'm not a shermedical professional. I'm shermedically unprofessional, actually. So please do investigate persistent fatigue outside of Penacony and make sure you get enough rest. But if the P.U.B just burned you out of Honkai Star Rail, do not despair. P.U.B is not forever, and much can be done about it. If you want to get back into Honkai, there are plenty of things in Honkai's future to be excited about. And bear in mind, the writer's team can switch around, so this storytelling style won't necessarily stay for the next update. But if you want to get away from Honkai, believe it or not, there are plenty of things outside of Honkai to be excited about, both in real life and in real life. Outside world exists, and the video game library is huge. And so, if you happen to be a fellow P.U.B sufferer, I hope you're better now, or you will be better soon. Because the future is bright, like your eyes, shining in the dark. How very bioluminescent of you! But whichever subjective opinion you happen to hold, love or hate Penacony, tired of Penacony, don't care for Penacony at all, and you just want to hear the shrimp say bada bing bada boom blast and fast fireball cast, I hope you're experiencing joy notwithstanding of all other circumstances. And if you listen to all of that rambling bumbling, thank you! Blowing you a shrimp kiss, and if you skip to this point, then you just get a shrimp kiss out of context. How good for you. Keep it in your adventure. You might need it later. And so, this will be me, Shrimp, and your introduction to P.U.Bs. I'm wishing you a grand old time out there, and bye-bye. 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 Bye-bye.